So I've covered most every single citrus note on the channel except for this particular one. I have not done a video focusing on this note, or a couple of notes, grapefruit, pomelo, and yuzu. But today, finally, on my channel, I've got 22 fragrances that features either grapefruit, pomelo, or yuzu, or some together. So if you're curious to watch and learn about these fragrances, I've got 22 here, then please stay tuned. Thanks so much for tuning in. This is Sebastian with Smelling Great Fragrance Reviews. That's right, I have done citrus fragrance videos focusing on lemons, lime, bergamot, oranges, mandarin oranges, clementines, tangerine, all of that stuff, but never really focused on grapefruit, yuzu, and pomelo. And I've been compiling fragrances for a while, and I've been trying to do this video earlier this summer, but things got delayed. But finally, it's here for you guys to watch and take notes down for the fragrances I'm going to talk to you about today. But before we do that, if this is your first time tuning into my channel and you still haven't subscribed to the channel, please click the subscribe button below and also click the bell so you'll be notified for future videos and giveaways. So who loves this note in fragrances? First of all, I guess I should ask, do you enjoy this particular fruit? Do you like to eat it? I occasionally do, and earlier this year I was eating quite a bit of pomelo. They had been bringing them at a local store here before the pandemic started. I was buying like 2 or 3 of them a week and eating pomelos. They're really, really yummy. And pomelos were not something I was really used to, but I just started discovering, you know, not only is there grapefruit out there, but there are other similar kind of fruits that smell similar, but they have their own unique nuances. So today we've got fragrances that feature grapefruit, pomelo, and yuzu. And again, yuzu is a Japanese fruit. It has, I don't know, it's a little different than your typical grapefruit, and some of these fragrances feature yuzu. I guess there's a few that are called yuzu, or 3 maybe. But you know, they're all kind of similar, in the same ballpark, just with their own unique nuances. But we're going to do 2 really kind of designer-ish ones, and probably you know. And these, this particular first one is a male-targeted fragrance. This is BLEU de Chanel. Of course, everybody knows this one. I guess it's a very crowd-pleasing kind of universally loved designer for men. It's fresh, it's refreshing, and it does focus on the grapefruit note, but there are notes of incense, amber, there's some lemony touches, ginger, cedar, mint, sandalwood, pink pepper, some patchouli, and labdanum with this one. I guess I should say it's a classy scent. It's not really anything groundbreaking, but it does, you know, put that grapefruit note in, you know, the star of the show here, and you know, it's pleasant to wear. Just not the type of grapefruit fragrance that I would say that smells like grapefruit, because there are a ton of fragrances here that either smell exactly like grapefruit. This one, I think, because it's mixed up with so many different notes, it kind of can fall into that category of just being a citrus fragrance. But still, a wonderful fragrance from Chanel. I'm focusing on the Eau de Parfum version here, and that's BLEU de Chanel. Another fragrance from a designer house, but a unisex targeted designer house fragrance from a signature lineup, and it's called Fly Away from Mugler, from their Cologne collection. And basically this one's mostly about grapefruit and cannabis, and it's a nice contrast. But you know what? It's interesting with the grapefruit. If you've ever peeled grapefruits, and I've done it countless times, and when I'm peeling it, I love that kind of bitter smell, the citrusy bitter kind of zingy smell. Absolutely love it. Here, it's really, really prominent. As soon as you put your nose on it, it's really, really prominent. The cannabis does not come in much, but you know, cannabis as a green smell note in a fragrance also has bitterness to it, but mostly I'm getting the grapefruit here. Once you wear it though, the greenish kind of herbal aromatic, bitter smell of the cannabis appears further. So it's a nice contrast, but kind of sort of related to each other because of the bitterness of the grapefruit and the bitterness of the cannabis. But wonderful. This collection, I think, is fairly nice. But I feel like even though they're eau de toilettes, they're very light fragrances, and they act like colognes. And you know, the performance might not be up to par with some, but they are very fresh and refreshing fragrances. So this is Mugler's Fly Away. Definitely check that out as a great fragrance for a grapefruit. We're going to a couple of designers here, and this is actually one fragrance that you guys had really spoken highly about. I decided to take the plunge and buy it. And you also guys said that it smells so much like Afternoon Swim from Louis Vuitton, and you know, I have it. It's Tigar from BVLGARI. It is about grapefruit, and this one actually is very, very sexy. It's that grapefruit bitterness citrusy bitterness, nicely contrasted with ambroxan, which has this kind of like aggressive quality to it. But it's actually when you're talking about ambroxan and you think about sauvage, which is really aggressive, this one does have a little bit of that aggressiveness, but it's a nice softer version of that aggressiveness, which I kind of like. It makes it quite sexy, and then infused with the grapefruit's bitterness and the citrusy qualities, it's wonderful. And then it also has some woody notes, and overall it's a great, wonderful fragrance. Now it does hint at Afternoon Swim a little bit, but the notes are completely different. Afternoon Swim is mandarin oranges. Here we have grapefruit, but there is another Louis Vuitton fragrance that this smells similar to, which also features grapefruit. But if you're liking the idea of ambroxan with grapefruit, definitely check this one out, as I think it's really, really wonderful. But the other fragrance that I think smells really close to BVLGARI's Tiger is Louis Vuitton's L'Immensité. And L'Immensité focuses on ambroxan and grapefruit once again. But you know, it's a waterier version, a softer version, whereas it's not as aggressive as the Tiger. Both fragrances were created by the same perfumer. This is a male-targeted fragrance. The Tiger is this unisex-targeted fragrance, but still I think it's very unisex for women to be able to wear as well. But this one has watery notes, not aquatic notes, but watery notes. Ambroxan, grapefruit, ginger, clary sage, rosemary, bergamot, geranium, amber, labdanum. It's a great, refreshing, freshy. A lot of people say it smells like Acqua di Gio, or Acqua di Gio, I should say. But you know, I could see that. It doesn't smell like it. It hints at it a little bit. But I think it's like a unique take on that whole Tiger thing. Tiger did come out much earlier than this one. 2 years earlier probably, but I feel like since the same perfumer worked on both, he takes and, you know, picks and chooses notes from the same fragrances. But overall, a great grapefruit scent, great quality of ambroxan and water, and the ambroxan in here doesn't act as aggressive as the one in Tiger. And recently I did a comparison video of Tiger with Afternoon Swim, and then there was this fragrance in there as well, Spirit of King's Arrakis. So this one, a lot of people say it smells a little bit like you know, Afternoon Swim and Tiger. I can see that, and it has notes of grapefruit, woody notes, and ambroxan, but in here I feel like the grapefruit's bitterness is nicely contrasted with woody notes. And the ambroxan is not as strong, so it doesn't have that aggressive qualities to it. But there are other unique things happening in here, even though I feel like they are similar, but it goes in a different direction. There's some bitterness in here from the grapefruit, and also the juiciness and pulpiness of the grapefruit in here as well. But loads of woody touches, and then of course the ambroxan is definitely there. So if you like the idea of Tiger and you're like thinking it's too expensive, you might want to check out Arrakis from Spirit of Kings again. They all have their unique twists, and it does hint at Tiger, even L'Immensité, but it's its own fragrance featuring grapefruit. So this is Arrakis from Spirit of Kings. So this next one is from the house of Eccentric Molecules, and this is Eccentric 4. This is the partner or the co-fragrance of Molecule 4, where it featured Javanol for sandalwood. So in here we have sandalwood, but you also have tons of grapefruit with juniper, osmanthus, mastic, galbanum, and rose. It's a great freshy. I really love this one. It was my favorite eccentric fragrance, eccentric as in eccentric versus molecule fragrance. It was very fresh and refreshing up until Eccentric 5 came out earlier this year, and now that's replaced it a little bit, but still they're very, very close in smells and how much I like them. And it's a great, you know, take on a grapefruit with those aromatic and spicy woody notes. The Javanol or sandalwood in here is pretty prominent, and it's really fresh and refreshing to wear in the summertime. So if you like grapefruit and sandalwood together with some aromatic touches and spicy touches, definitely try Eccentric 4 for that grapefruit note. Now this next one is such a great scent. I actually have fallen in love with it. Just love the fact that it's got this really, really beautiful pomelo note. So here we have nectar from Commodity, and Commodity's nectar is so delicious, guys. The pomelo in here is really bitter and, you know, sweet at the same time, and you also have the juiciness of that pomelo note, but it's nicely contrasted with that floral touch of orange blossom and neroli. So What we have is a nice juxtaposition of the bitterness of the pomelo. You're getting the skin in here, you're getting the juiciness in here, you're getting the pulpiness in here, plus you have the beautiful floral touches of the orange tree, the orange blossom and neroli. But throw in some honeysuckle and tangerine and musk, you have such a great, delicious fragrance. So wonderful to wear in the summertime. It's bittersweet, it's floral, it's green, it's musky, it's a clean, really delicious fragrance. Commodity nectar is great. This next one is from a house that rarely is spoken about. It's a smallish house from Paris, France, called Healy, James Healy. This is Note de Yuzu. And here we have an aquatic take on the yuzu note. So we have yuzu, but we also have grapefruit. I feel like whenever they have yuzu as a note, they actually add grapefruit in the notes as well. But with this one, you have yuzu, grapefruit, sea salt, so it gives it a saltiness, mandarin orange, seaweed for that aquatic marine touch, vetiver, and musk. It's a great take on this fragrance, and I feel like this one works great in the summertime. Well, all of these fragrances are perfect in the summertime. None of them are like intense fragrances. Maybe there might be a few I'll tell you about, but wonderful, wonderful wearing experience where you want that grapefruit and yuzu together, but you want a little bit of an aquatic freshness or something and saltiness. And the saltiness just adds a unique toning down of the tartness of the citrusy qualities of this fragrance, and then that seaweed just, you know, throws in the marine layers. And it's a wonderful fragrance. It's great, great smell, a unique take on the note of yuzu and grapefruit, and one that I really love to smell. So this is Note de Yuzu from James Healy or Healy. This next fragrance here is from a house called Olfactive Studio, and this is Still Life. So Still Life is all about yuzu, but this one actually I feel like it is a more concentrated and stronger take on this particular note. And here it is peppery, loads of pepper. So you've got yuzu, you've got pink pepper, you've got boozy notes of rum, bitter green notes of galbanum, there's resinous notes of elemi, cedar, pink pepper. I think I already mentioned pink pepper. There's some star anise and amber. It's a unique concoction for a yuzu or a grapefruity kind of fragrance, whereas it does go a little deeper and richer than your typical freshie. So if you want your fresh fragrance or your fresh fragrance note of yuzu with a little bit of a backbone, then you would do something like this. So this is a great take on that note. It smells very, very wonderful with spiciness and booziness and bitter green touches. Anyway, that's Still Life from the House of Olfactive Studio. Now this one I recently spoke about in a video speaking about this brand called J-Scent from Japan. That's this one right here, and this is yuzu. So here once again we have yuzu with grapefruit as that matching of yuzu with grapefruit again. It'll come up more frequently later. But this one I feel like it's yuzu, grapefruit, lemons, there's lime, and there's thyme, bergamot, mandarin orange, rose, and orange. With this one I feel like it's a nice contrast of citruses, mostly the yuzu and the grapefruit, with this very, very prominent thyme note. The thyme note is very, very interesting. I've eaten a lot of thyme cooked meals, especially French food. They use it a lot and I love it with meats and things. And so it's prominent. You can totally pick up that thyme note. It's a great herb. It's a nice aromatic green herb, but it's different than rosemary. It's different than, you know, basil or sage or any of that, mint or something like that. So it has its unique concoction and I like about it. I think it's a little closer to oregano. I think thyme comes a little closer to oregano, but it's not quite oregano anyway. So if you like the idea of these like grapefruity citruses of yuzu and grapefruit with other citruses and of course this like prominent thyme note, then definitely check out Yuzu by J-Scent. So this next one is from a house of Parfums and Nicolai. It's called Yuzu, and I recently reviewed this one for Saffler Balm. But this one here we have loads of yuzu with grapefruit, gaiac wood, petitgrain, patchouli, and juniper. So this is a great refreshing, not as deep and rich as J-Scent's yuzu, but this one's very, very fresh and refreshing because the concentration of this fragrance is eau fraiche. So it's a lot fresher and a lot more easier to wear. It doesn't have a lot of depth, so it goes down pretty easily, but as a smell, it's a great smell. It's fresh and refreshing, and even though they're not crediting a salty note, I get it's like a salty quality with this one. There's a little bit of saltiness in the background, not like a full-on in-your-face salt, but just a little bit of saltiness, and it tones down the citrusy astringency. But a great freshie, and it's perfect for very, very hot days. That's Eau de Yuzu from the House of Parfums and Nicolai. So this next one is a house that not a lot of people speak about. It's a small house, sort of similar to Eccentric Molecules, those kind of brands where they use synthetic molecules to create smells. This is called Ether, and this is Citrus Ester. So this is a really great citrus fragrance. If you like the citruses, definitely one for you to try. But this one has grapefruit, methyl pamplemousse, and rhubarb as notes according to my research. But it's all about grapefruit. It smells very grapefruity citrus. So it's juicy, it's pulpy, it's bitter, it's green, and you know, just has this really wonderful citrus quality to it. And then it's meshed with this kind of like rhubarby kind of fruity touch. And it smells fantastic. The great thing about this one is it has great longevity. It's not like a beast or anything. It doesn't have like these big projection and things like that. But as a wearing experience, it's pretty long lasting. And it's a wonderful take on a fragrance. And not a lot of people talk about this brand, as I said, but this is a wonderful offering from the house of Ether. So earlier on, when I was starting out this journey of doing videos on YouTube, this is my second channel. On my first channel, I spoke about this fragrance quite a bit and had ran out of a bottle, but I recently picked up another bottle. And it's from the house of Fresh, and it's called Hesperida's Grapefruit, and it's one of my very first real true grapefruit fragrances. I have another one coming up too, I'll tell you about it. But this one actually was a really love at first sniff. I really loved it, and there were some products I used to use also with this kind of a smell that I really enjoyed, because you have this really wonderful grapefruit note that's kind of bittersweet, as I said, and it's nicely meshed with like lots of oranges and lemons and bergamot. And with this one there are some floral touches, and of course there's fruity touches with rhubarb as well. There's rhubarb here, lotus, musk, peach, and jasmine, and it's really fresh and refreshing. I really love it, and I love the bitterness about grapefruit as a note. Grapefruit has this bitter quality, and I like that about it. So it's a nice contrast with your other, you know, typical citruses of, you know, oranges or lemons. Of course, it doesn't get as tart and sour as lemons do, but it has this nice balance of sourness, a nice balance of sweetness, and then of course the bitterness and zinginess that I like. And this one's totally zingy, bitter, and sweet at the same time. It's a wonderful wear. It's fresh and refreshing. Of course, it's called Fresh. That's the name of the brand. Hesperida's Grapefruit, but it's a great take on that whole grapefruit smell. So this is Fresh Hesperida's. This next one is a fragrance I reviewed several months ago. It's a newish launch from the house of HISTOIRES de PARFUMS. This is not a blue bottle, 1.6. So this one features grapefruit and yuzu at the same time, but it has orange blossom, jasmine, orange, lotus, neroli, musk, and vetiver. So going to this particular fragrance, it has similar notes, but they're not identical. And it's a different take on that style of fragrance where it uses the yuzu, it uses the grapefruit, plus it uses orange blossom and neroli. But this one also has loads of jasmine. The jasmine is very prominent here. But it's a great smell. The jasmine might be a little funky, so be warned about that, but it's ultra fresh and refreshing, and I really love the bottle too. So if you like the idea of those notes, yuzu with grapefruit and then orange blossom and jasmine and lotus and things like that, definitely check out. This is not a blue bottle from the house of HISTOIRES de PARFUMS. Alright, so this next one is from the house of Atelier d'Azores, and this is Pomelo Riviera. So this is an aquatic take on grapefruit. And this is, of course, the house of Atelier d'Azores. And here we have loads of grapefruit, orange blossom. Again, they do love to work those notes together. And I feel like grapefruit and orange blossom do work wonderfully together. You have that beautiful citrusy floral touch with that bitter grapefruit. I think they're match made in heaven. But here they've thrown in some sea salt. They've got jasmine in here as well. So there is a floral touch about this and floral quality. And then there's some rose and cedar. So in the end, it's basically like you're smelling grapefruit and you're getting a sea air of saltiness and things like that. And there are some beautiful flowers as well. So it's a great fresh aquatic take on a grapefruit fragrance, and it smells fantastic. And I love that bottle as well. As you can see, their bottles have this beautiful gold flakes floating around, and this is called Pomelo Riviera, focusing on the French Riviera. And next we're going to another Atelier house, and this is Pomelo Paradis from Atelier Cologne. Oh man, this is so good, guys. Grapefruit, mandarin orange, orange blossom, mint, black currant, vetiver, amber, rose, iris. Even though it's called Pomelo Paradis, or I think I said paradise. Even though it's called Pomelo Paradis, I don't see the pomelo note listed, but you know, grapefruits and pomelo are very similar in smells anyway. So it's a great fresh take on this particular style of this particular fruit. And if you like things like orange sanguine, clementine California, Bergamot Soleil, you're going to definitely like this one, especially if you like the smell of grapefruits or pomelo. It's fresh, refreshing, and I think, you know, this is the kind of fragrance you would wear in the heat and just overspray and smell fantastic. So that's Pomelo Paradis from Atelier Cologne. One more fragrance house with that word Atelier in the name, and this time we're going to a smallish, newish house called Atelier Materi. This is Poivre Pomelo, so black pepper or pepper with pomelo. And here we've got a spicy take on that pomelo note, but you have loads of grapefruit in here. Sichuan pepper, so the poivre I think is the Sichuan pepper as a prominent note. There's some peony flower here. There's some angelica. There's mate. There's also pink pepper, vetiver, osmanthus, and cedar. So for me, even though the pomelo is pretty prominent, there's a lot of other notes that come in as well. So it kind of tones down the bittersweet qualities of the pomelo or the grapefruit note, and it makes it not only a main star, but it kind of like blends in with some other fragrances that are also pretty prominent stars here. So the Sichuan pepper is really prominent here. It's really nicely meshed with or contrasted with the grapefruit note, and it's just a nice balance of grapefruit or pomelo with Sichuan pepper. Sichuan pepper is a spice that's similar to pink pepper or black pepper, but it has a lemony quality to it. Even though you can smell it, it smells spicy, but it has a lemony twist to it, so I think it meshes nicely with the grapefruit and it makes for a fantastic smell. Now this one actually is also a deeper and richer fragrance. It might be a little strong or overwhelming for the summertime, but it is a great take on those notes. If you like Sichuan pepper, if you like pomelo or grapefruit, definitely check out Poivre Pomelo from the house of Atelier Materi. Alright, 5 more to go, and we're going to the house of Hermes, and this is Eau de Pamplemousse Rose. So pamplemousse is the French word for grapefruit, and this one's focusing on grapefruit, plus it has notes of oranges and rose. So it's a simplistic eau de cologne, so it's fresh and refreshing, it's light, it's not intense, but they've got a beautiful combination of grapefruit with oranges and rose. I mean, it's a wonderful scent. I've worn it quite a bit. The collection itself is a really great collection, but it's not like your intense fragrance. You got to wear a lot of it to have it last a long time. But if you like that combination of the citruses and the bitterness of the grapefruits and the sweetness of the oranges with rose, it's a great take on that fragrance or those notes, and just it works great in the heat. And I love the way it smells because it's different. I haven't really found a fragrance that matches lots of rose with like this bitter grapefruit and orange note. Anyway, Eau de Pamplemousse Rose from Hermes is a great fragrance. This next one is from the house of Guerlain. This is Pamplemousse. Pamplemousse is what it's called. And this one actually, you know, it's a bitter. You can totally smell the skin of the grapefruit in this one. It's really strong. It's slightly oily as well. I don't know, when you peel grapefruit quite frequently, you get the oils and you can smell that bitterness in there, and it smells pretty fantastic and very you know, true to the smell of the skin. You've got loads of grapefruit here, bergamot, but it's got lots of cassis note in here. The cassis in here reminds me of the cassis in Lombardon Low, so it has that kind of bitter greenness to it. There's petitgrain, there's patchouli, neroli, and vanilla. It's a unique take on it. It's been around since the 90s, the late 90s, but it smells fantastic. Like if you like grapefruit, if you like the smell of the skin, the bitterness, the oiliness of the skin, you gotta try Pamplemousse from Guerlain. It's a great fragrance. So this next one is from the house of Currant. It's called the Yuzu Man, this one right here. And Yuzu Man is a fragrance that's been around for a while. I'm going to spray some on. I'm not wearing anything. I just picked it up for this video because I wanted to have it. I've never really worn it. And a lot of people recommend it. A lot of you have recommended it to me. But what I get with this one is loads of Yuzu with you know, stringent lemongrass, but you know, you have this green fig fruit note. So you've got the fig leaves, you also have the fruity notes of the figs in here, so it's just an interesting combination of notes: cedar, basil, sandalwood, pistachio, and spices. So very interesting smell. It's not overly strong. It is definitely on the astringent side because I feel like lemongrass adds this like lemony astringency to the fragrance. Yuzu is definitely bitter as well, but the overall concoction, the overall combination of these notes is really, really fantastic. I feel that it might be a little light to wear in the winter time, but I feel like it's a very happy fragrance. You can wear it any time of the year. Just be warned, I don't think this particular fragrance, the one time I wore it, you know, really did a lot for me, but I oversprayed and it was pretty warm, so it did have a little bit of a longevity. But it's a great fragrance. It's from a classic house, Currant, which is known for their fragrance Currant Pour de Currant. But this isn't, as I said, one that I have always wanted to wear, never really did, and now I'm glad to have in my collection because it's also very, very inexpensive, about $30 for a 120 ml bottle. So it's definitely an expensive fragrance to have in your collection. So that's Currant Yuzu Man. Again, it's Yuzu Man. It's for men. I think women can totally pull that one off. I think it's totally doable. So next we have two fragrances from Jo Malone. First one is Grapefruit, one of my very first loves from Jo Malone in the early 2000s. I really love this one because it's grapefruit, but it doesn't really smell like grapefruit, if that makes sense. So you do have the grapefruit note in here, but it's the toned down grapefruit. The bitterness is gone, so you've left with some citruses. But there's also rosemary, vetiver, mint, tangerine, oakmoss, chili pepper, patchouli, and jasmine. And all of those work wonderfully together. They smell fantastic. It's refreshing. It's a little bit spicy. It's got the sexy patchouli note, and it's not long lasting, unfortunately, because it's an eau de cologne, but smells really, really great. As I said, one of my very first fragrances. I've worn so many bottles of this one because I just really love it. It goes down pretty easily. You can spray it liberally because, you know, it's very light eau de cologne, but smells fantastic. Anyway, Grapefruit from Jo Malone. All right, this next one and the last one on the list is called YUJA Cologne from the house of Jo Malone. Again, it's from the Jo Malone. It's a fantastic smell with the yuzu and grapefruit note, with some light floral touches here, with some grassy touches and woody touches. It's a fantastic smell. It's, again, once again, it's an eau de cologne from the house of Jo Malone because they're all eau de colognes unless you go into their darker bottles, which are more intense, but doesn't last a long time. But I've been testing this one out in the summer, in the heat. We've been having some heat waves here the last couple of weeks, and I know one of you said you guys don't have heat waves. Come to Texas, Houston or something. I know it's hotter in Texas, but it is pretty hot here. But it shines in the heat quite wonderfully. The yuzu and the grassiness kind of come through. I feel like it's a grassy take on yuzu with some light floral touches and woody touches, almost like vetiver is in here, and it's a nice contrast with the citrusy, bittersweet you know, note of the yuzu fruit. So in the end, again, you gotta decide if you like the idea of wearing a fragrance from Jo Malone, because they're eau de colognes, they don't last as long. But sometimes those fragrances from Jo Malone smell so fantastic that even though they're eau de colognes, I still end up getting them. And this one doesn't disappoint, and I love the smell of this fragrance because of the yuzu and all the grassy touches and woody touches. Anyway, YUJA Cologne from the house of Jo Malone. And that's the last fragrance in this list. Thanks so much for watching today's video. Let me know what your thoughts are on these fragrances. Have you tested any of these out? Do you own any of these fragrances? And let me know, do you like grapefruit, yuzu, or pomelo as a note for fragrances? Also, let me know if there are fragrances that you own that I did not discuss today. I'm always looking for new fragrances and like to find out what's out there in addition to these fragrances, so I can check them out for future videos. Anyway, guys, thanks so much for watching today's video. If you have any questions or comments, please list below. Otherwise, please like this video, please share it, follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and I'll be back with more videos very soon. Have a good one. Goodbye.